Hi, welcome. We want to join. Thank you for joining us today for a It Is Not a Secret application tips webinar. We want to share with you a little bit more about our application and some tips on getting that submitted now that our applications for 2018 are open. So first, let's start with introducing ourselves. My name is Jessica Voss. I'm an Associate Director of Graduate Admissions here at Olin Business School. I've been here for about 2 years and working with our admissions and recruitment team. And I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Lotzenheiser. I'm also an Associate Director of Graduate Program Admissions here at the Olin Business School at WashU. I've been on staff now for about 7 years at the university, and Jessica and I are really excited this morning to speak with you and give you some not so secret tips about the application.
All right, let's move forward. Just moving a little. Jay, we just want to make sure we love to hear from you in many ways. We like to talk to you, but for this case, we have muted you. We want to make sure to reduce any background noise. So if anyone is having any difficulty hearing us, please make sure that you use the raise your hand function or send us a message in the chat box so that we can try to get that fixed for you. This is a very interactive session. So of course we want to share tips with you, but we also want to answer your questions. So please make sure that you're sending us your questions in the Q&A function that Zoom offers. And we will address all of those questions at the end of the session as time allows. So let's dive right in. The application. What are the parts of the application that we're going to talk to you about today? We're going to walk you through the application form. We will talk about test scores, your academic record, your essay, your resume, the interview, and then we'll talk a little bit about our application deadlines, upcoming events, and what are the next steps for you as an applicant to a graduate program. So, the first part, the application form. The application form is going to give us some really basic standard information. It's going to tell us what program you're applying for. We offer many programs here in the Graduate Programs Office, so that helps us know which program that you are applying for. It is a summary of documentations that you're submitting in the application. So you're going to report there your GRE or your GMAT score, your TOEFL score. You'll report your GPA. You'll report employment information, such as your months of work experience, of full-time work experience after graduation. You'll also provide us demographic data, but I think the most important thing that the application provides for us on the admissions team is your contact information. Make sure that the email address that you are using on the application is one that you use frequently and that you check. Most often, we will communicate with you through email. So invitations for different events will be sent by email. So make sure that that email address is correct and that you check it frequently. Also, provide a phone number. Sometimes our admissions team would like to reach out to you by phone and have a conversation with you about your application. So make sure that you provide that phone number on your application. Read all of the instructions. Make sure that you take the time, print out the form if you're a paper person, or read it on the computer, and walk through every step and make sure that you understand what we're asking for. It is very straightforward, so just make sure that you read those instructions, and then also proofread before clicking submit to make sure that your address is correct, that your email address is correct, and that you have that phone number on there. And so now that you've started with that basic application form, let's talk a little bit about that big elephant in the room. Ashley?
We are going to talk about test scores. By the way, I love elephants, so I always like that slide. So we are going to talk first about the GMAT or the GRE exam. So we require either the GMAT or the GRE exam to apply to any of our graduate programs. We do not have a preference between these two exams. I think the most important thing to note for us is that they are two different exams. Yes, they are both standardized exams. They are both for admission into business school, but they are also administered very differently. If you have not taken one of these exams yet, I would encourage you to first do research about the differences in the two exams. For example, the GMAT is only a computer-based exam. It is actually computer adaptive, meaning that once you answer a question on the GMAT exam, you cannot go back and change your answer. It is set in stone because the program then adapts to the answer that you've given to give you the next question in the exam. The GRE within a section does allow you to go back and redo a question, or to go back and answer a question. So, that's one way that the exams are different. They're administered by different companies, so they're also offered in different locations. Both are offered worldwide. They're very similar in the length of the exam, so how long it actually takes to sit for the exam. And those scores are both valid for 5 years each. I would encourage you, because we do not have a preference, you should probably have a preference. And I would suggest that your preference is the one that you're going to do better on. So do research, take practice exams of both exams. See which one you're going to do better on. Usually we see that candidates do better on one exam over the other. You can go and you can look at the kind of, equivalent score, and see what that looks like across the GMAT or the GRE, but certainly if you haven't taken one, I would say, please do your research before sitting for one of those exams. The other aspect is that retesting for either exam is perfectly fine. Absolutely, retesting on the exam is a great way once you've taken the test to kind of know what to expect, and so you're not surprised. And certainly we see candidates generally do better on a retest than they do on the initial test, and that holds for both the GMAT or the GRE exam. Now, as I said, we're happy to dive a little bit into these more. I know there are a lot of questions usually surrounding these tests, but definitely the biggest thing is to do your research and to understand the differences in the two tests, and to practice, to really think of this as a part of the application process that you will take usually about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks at least, to study for the exam before you sit for the exam. Do not take the exam cold. Neither of these exams are something that you can just wake up one day and decide to take. The other aspect of testing that we do want to talk about is English proficiency testing, and some students are required to complete either the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. These, again, are tests. We do not have a preference between the two. They are two different English proficiency exams offered in different parts of the world. Sometimes candidates only have access to one of these tests. We do not have a preference between these tests. Now, if you don't know if you need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS exam, this is our waiver policy. So in essence, if you are an international student, meaning you are not a US citizen or permanent resident, and your native language is not English, you must take the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. Also, the exam needs to be valid and recent, especially for immigration policy. So you need to have taken the exam. If you're applying for fall of 2018, the exam needs to have been taken after August 1st of 2016. Now, if you are wondering if you qualify for a waiver, there are some criteria that you need to meet. You need to have taken at least 3 years of coursework at a college or university where the primary medium of instruction is English, which you will need to prove either from a letter from that school or it will be on your transcript. And you have to have received your degree from this institution. What this means is if you just have a 2-year master's degree, this would not meet the qualifications for a waiver. Also, if you went to a school but you didn't complete your degree there, maybe you transferred to a non-English school, you would also not qualify for a waiver. If you feel that you do qualify for a waiver, you would select waiver in the application itself. But knowing that if you mis-select waiver, that certainly can cause processing delays in your application. So it's important to know who does and who may not qualify for a waiver for English testing. Jessica and I are fighting over the mess. Now, moving on to the academic record. This is another part of the application that helps us understand your preparation for the program, but also your ability to handle the rigor of the program. Your academic record, what we really mean by that is basically your undergraduate record, your transcripts, and your GPA. But it certainly goes beyond just your GPA. The academic record tells us what classes you've taken, what your major was, maybe what school you were at within your college. It also gives us an idea of the trends in your academic record. So thinking about your record, hopefully you see either a consistent, wonderful trend in your grades. They were good throughout your undergraduate degree. Or maybe you had a little bit of a tough time adapting to college life. That's definitely common that we see, but hopefully there's an upward trend in your academic record. Certainly if you have already finished your undergraduate degree, this is an unchangeable part of the application. There's nothing you can do to go back and change your academic record. But if you are still in college, if you're still an undergraduate student, we would highly recommend that you finish strong. Absolutely, we look at the entire time that you're an undergraduate student. That is very important. And again, we're looking at your grades or your marks. We're looking at the classes that you took. We're trying to get an idea of the rigor of the program that you did as an undergraduate student. Now, your academic record, if you have another degree, so any other degree that's been conferred, maybe you have a master's degree, maybe you have a JD, maybe you have a second undergraduate degree. Anytime you received a degree, those academic records need to be a part of your application. So you'll need to submit your transcripts, your grades and marks for any of the schools in which you received a degree. Because again, that gives us an idea of your ability to handle the academic rigor, but also to give us an idea of how you stand within the applicant pool. So thinking again about trying to build a diverse class, we will look at candidates who have all different types of backgrounds. It is not required that you have a business degree or that you've taken business classes in order to do something like an MBA. But certainly, especially for something like some of our specialized master's programs, we definitely want to see some quantitative coursework. We want to see the rigor of the courses that you've taken, things of that nature. So hopefully that gives you an idea on the academic side of both how the test scores are used in the application and then also how the academic record comes into play.
Great. Let's talk about that next component of the application, which is your essay. Biggest piece of advice. Just be calm, read the prompt, and write your essay. The essay is really important to us because it's really going to let us understand what are your goals, what are your values, what are your aspirations, your potential, and areas of opportunity. And most importantly, it really gives you the opportunity to tell your story, which leads us into what is the prompt in our application. If you have not opened up and started our application, this is our essay prompt. At Olin, we aim to know every student by name and story. Please share your journey with us and why the pursuit of this degree is the right decision for you. So when you're thinking about writing this essay, be authentic. Write it yourself. Don't try to cut corners by doing a one-size-fits-all essay. We really just want to know who you are. We want to see that you have a strong sense for who you are, what you want to do with a graduate degree, why this graduate degree is important to you, and also how we fit into that journey and that plan, and why our program is the right decision for you, and how we will help you really get there. So take the time to read the prompt, proofread. Make sure that you have a friend or two proofread. It might be a good idea to have someone that knows you really well read your story so that they can see that you're being authentic, but it might be a good idea to also have someone who maybe doesn't know you as well read your essay and see if they can understand how you're coming across and what you're trying to convey. Most importantly, again, just be yourself. Don't tell us what you think we want you to hear, what we want to hear, but tell us who you are and just be yourself through your essay. And again, proofread. I don't think I can say it enough. Common mistakes, including the name of another school, including, leaving parts out or not following a clear story, a beginning, a middle, and an end in terms of your essay. We know it's short, but please just take the time to be yourself. It's 500 words or less, so it's not a lot of room, but we do think you can really take the opportunity to share with us who you are.
I like to tell people when you give your essay to someone to proofread or to look over and kind of, again, as Jess said, thinking about someone who knows you well. Again, we're asking to know your story. So give your essay to someone who knows you well and who knows your story. Mm-hmm. I also like give your essay to someone and don't give them the prompt.
Yeah.
Just give them the essay and see if they can infer what the prompt is. And if they say, yeah, it sounds like, you were asked to share your story or your background and maybe like why you want this degree, wonderful, you're definitely on track. But if they can't figure out what you're supposed to be writing about,
that might be a red flag. A little bit of a problem there. So we do give you more opportunity to write. So there is the optional essay, but I want to stress here, this is the optional essay. It's most commonly used to explain things that the admission committee cannot get or see from your application. Things like gaps in your resume experience. Maybe there was a time where you weren't working. maybe there was a time where there was an extenuating circumstance in your undergraduate education. So it's not used to recap your resume or stress something that we can already see through your application. So just remember, it's optional. You don't have to write it.
Wonderful. Now I see a lot of questions coming into the Q&A. Keep them coming. We will answer those at the end. You guys are asking some really great questions, so we will certainly answer those at the end. So as you think of them, please write them in the Q&A box. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you. I next want to talk about the resume, and the resume should be a thing of beauty, but I usually tell people it's not a picture. It doesn't look like the most beautiful thing in the world. So this is our beautiful campus, our beautiful buildings, but your resume doesn't look like that. It's going to look a little bit more like this. And this is actually a sample of an undergraduate resume from the business school. Now, I'm going to give you a really big hint about what we want out of a resume. So my big hint is that our Career Center's website is available. And if you notice, the resume section is not locked. You do not need a student password to get into the resume section. So if you do not know how to format a resume, if you don't think you have a professional resume, go online. And I will also say your undergraduate school might have a very similar opportunity. So if you go onto your own school's website from your undergraduate institution, you might also find a similar resource. We want it to be a professional resume. Now, I will say our standard is a one-page resume. That's a pretty typical standard in the US, one page. I know for some of you that seems a little daunting, but it really should be condensed, and it should be a good use of space. So if you think about, again, kind of what our Career Center advises students, which is certainly what we would advise you, your resume should absolutely be concise, accurate, and professional. So we talked about the professional aspect. We talked about being concise to one page and accurate. Any information on your resume should absolutely be verifiable and accurate. This is not the time to be telling tall tales. Now, it should definitely be proof for spelling, grammar, and conformance. So once again, definitely if you are not the head of grammar in your world, go out and find somebody that you think is.
I have to have Ashley prove myself all the time.
So absolutely. If you're the person that is finding our grammar errors in this PowerPoint presentation, then yeah, you're probably good to go on correcting your own. But it's always good to have a second set of eyes. It's always good to make sure you didn't leave off a letter that changed a word into another word. That can be a little confusing and sometimes very funny, but unfortunate. Now, customized to the specific position that you are seeking. Now, I will say we're not a fan of the statement of purpose on a resume. That's not a resume. That's a mini essay. So, customized to a specific position, really for business school, what this means is that it's up to date and includes everything relevant, obviously, to your future. But it also, again, is clear that you have taken the steps. That this is again a professional resume. This is a business professional resume, so this is not a resume that you might submit for a research position. This is not a resume that you would submit for an acting position. This is a resume that you're going to submit for business. I'll also mention action and results oriented. So this means in your resume, you'll have concrete results or actions associated with each of the positions that you've had. Now, the other thing is definitely that it's error-free. So once again, what I would say this also means is that it's up to date. So when you submit your application, your resume should include basically exactly what you're doing at that time. And it also needs to match what you've submitted in your application form. So in the application form, you'll tell us your current job, the position, the company, and how long you've worked there, and you'll also be submitting your resume. Those two things should match. So if you say your current job is one thing, and then you have something else on a resume, we're going to ask some questions. Now, we certainly understand as you go through the application process that you might change jobs or you might get a promotion. That would be awesome. You are welcome to submit updated resumes if things change, if there are significant changes. Otherwise, you shouldn't be tweaking your resume too much. Unless there's some great new job or new promotion, your resume should be polished and set to go when you submit it for the application. Once again, kind of this is one part of the application that should match all other components within the application. So hopefully these tips from our Career Center are pretty helpful. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, who's going to talk about another important aspect of the application, a fun one, interviewing.
So keep in mind, interviews are by invitation and can come in many different formats. So you might be invited to an interview, and you can do that interview via a virtual interview on campus or in person. You might be invited to do a recorded video interview. So our interviews are going to come in different formats, but no matter the format, you should treat this as a professional job interview. Professional attire, being prepared but not rehearsed. So even if you're doing a video interview, taking the time to be prepared in that interview and answer the question, but not rehearsing or memorizing the responses to those questions. Really, the interview for us, regardless of the format of your interview, the interview is your chance to stand out. It really plays a supportive role in our application. It allows us to assess your communication skills, your professional maturity, and your fit for both as an applicant and for the school and the program that you're applying to. So practice, again, like I said with the essay, I won't stress it enough, be yourself. We really want to get to know you. And the questions that we're asking, we're aiming to understand who you are. What are your motivations? What are your goals? And how do we fit into that? So also, when you're asked a question, use that STAR method. So really think about the situation, the task that you were given, the action you took, and the results. So when you're framing your examples for stories, really try to attack them in that format. Other than that, common things, if you're doing them on Skype, make sure you have a professional background. If you're doing the Kira interview, make sure you know your sound works, that if you're using headphones that you can hear from your computer. Test your Skype connection ahead of time with a friend. Make sure that if you are invited to do a Skype interview, that you know what your Skype username is so that the interviewer can find you very easily. If you are invited to do a Kira video interview, those interview invitations usually go out about between 2 and 4 hours after you select the criteria that gets you invited to that interview. So just make sure that you're following the process as it is given to you, and just following instructions. That's very, very key part to the interview process. Let's see, tips. Big things for our application. Make sure you are utilizing the same email in all communications if possible. Going back to that, one of the very first things I told you guys today, make sure that email address that you're putting in the application is one that you check frequently, and that it is error-free. We will use your email to communicate with you quite frequently. So make sure that if you're emailing us a question, try to use that same email. It will definitely help us track you down. When you start your application, you will get a unique identifier. It's your AYID. It is a 7-digit number, and it usually will start, I believe it starts with a 6. And use that if possible in any communications. That really helps us make sure that we know who we're talking to when you're asking questions about your application. And for fastest responses, please email olingradadmissions@woostel.edu. Many of our recruiters are often traveling and away from their desks, so the quickest response can often be to email the Olin Grad Admissions email. And then another tip that's not really included here, but I want to make sure to share with you, is to just really be engaged. Be engaged with us throughout the process. Learn about our programs and the program that you're applying to. Talk to people here at WashU and at Olin Business School, whether it be your recruiter or our current students that are on our website. Really learn about the program, learn about, the culture and how you fit into that, and really take to heart all of the things that you learn through doing these different sessions, whether it be today with application tips or some of the other events that we share later. Just really take that to heart and be engaged in the process. And I think that's a really big tip for the whole application process. Now, you've learned about how to apply. When do you need to apply by? If you are applying to our professional MBA program for spring start, your deadlines for spring of 2018 are going to be October 3rd, 2017, and then November 30th, 2017. If you are applying to one of our other programs, so whether it be the full-time MBA program or one of our specialized master's programs, these are our deadlines for for fall 18 admission. Please note that February 1st, 2018 is our international priority deadline. That deadline really helps us get I-20s processed in time, and it is important to highlight that that is our international priority deadline. So please, let's see how you can continue to interact with us and maybe meet us out on the road or different ways you can interact. Ashley?
Yeah, there are so many different ways to communicate and interact with us. And as Jessica said, this is a wonderful way to learn if the program's a good fit. It's also a great way to express interest in the program. So it's a wonderful way for us to know who's really interested, who's done their homework, asking informed questions. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. So Jessica mentioned quite a few of them. So we're going to dive into some ones that we want to highlight. So this coming fall, we have a number of events that are wonderful opportunities to actually come to campus and learn more about our programs. Our preview day on October 7th is open to all students interested in all programs. So any of the programs that we offer, this is a great day event to come to campus to learn more. We do actually do an application tips in-person session there. Opportunity to hear about the plethora of programs that we have and the opportunities through the business school. We also have, for students considering the full-time MBA program, our Olin Women's Weekend in November, and then also our Olin Diversity Weekend in December. We'd love to see you at any of these events. Additionally, we do have on-campus visit days, so if you'd like to come to campus, sit in on a class, attend lunch with some current students. We do offer visit days usually once or twice a month, and you can find all of these on our website in addition to information about how to RSVP. I also want to mention that we certainly know not everyone's able to come to campus, and we also have quite a few webinars, just like this one. So next week, actually, we have 2 webinars. We usually have quite a few webinars each month. So our upcoming webinars, we have a graduate programs overview webinar, so helping you understand which path is best for you, talking about the different opportunities that graduate programs at Olin have. Also, we have a scholarship opportunities webinar next week. That's a wonderful opportunity to hear not only about the scholarship opportunities for our programs, but also how to make a competitive scholarship application. All candidates are automatically considered for scholarship, but certainly what are the components that we really look at? And again, how can you be competitive in that process? Now, as Jessica mentioned, our recruiters are busy out on the road traveling. Some of our upcoming events that we wanted to highlight, we are a Forte member school, so we'll be attending the Forte Forums in the US. We certainly hope to see you there. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn more about that organization as well. Our recruiters will be traveling throughout the world. Actually, our recruiters right now are in India. We have recruiters that will be traveling all over Asia at the end of August, and then in Southeast Asia in September. We'll be in Africa. We will be in Latin America. We also are a consortium member school, so if you're interested in the MBA program and applying through the consortium, the upcoming event for them is the New York event. That's their first one of the season. Those are continuing on in California and in other cities through the US. We also are a member of Inside the MBA, so those are small, intimate events that are held throughout the US. I do want to mention again that we travel extensively throughout the world, so these are all the countries that we'll be in this fall recruiting season. So we certainly hope to see you there, and also through a number of cities here in the US, and of course virtually as well. But we certainly hope that you can come to one of these events and meet one of our recruiters and learn more about opportunities. You can register for all of these through our website. We've listed our websites down below so you can understand a little bit more if there are programs that are specific to the graduate program that you're interested in. These are all also different kinds of events. So once again, wonderful ways to connect with recruiters, get your questions answered, and learn more about the program being a good fit for you. Now, I mentioned kind of getting your questions answered. We wanted to give you some next steps. So certainly starting the application is a great one. As Jessica mentioned, it gives you an opportunity to log in, look at the application, understand what we're going to be asking you to submit, what things you might need to still work on. Certainly get your questions answered, and that could be through typing it in the Q&A box right now, where you have a lot of questions to answer here. It also could be sending us an email at olingradadmissions@worcester.edu. It could also be connecting with us, so maybe it's coming to campus, meeting us somewhere else in the world, or again, virtually through one of these webinars. We certainly encourage you to get your questions answered. Now, I do, as I said, want to turn it over because we have quite a few good Q&A questions in the Q&A box. So keep those coming. We've saved quite a bit of time for questions. So I think we'll kind of just start at the top and get going. So someone asked about median GRE scores. So what are the median GRE scores that we have? So one of the aspects of understanding your fit for the program could be looking at the profile of our class. So our students actually for the full-time MBA program, they actually just started on Wednesday. So we have a brand new class. We are super excited. They were all sitting in the atrium this morning in matching t-shirts. It was very cute. So we're super excited to have them. So you can look at the class profile. We'll release our new class profile, at least for the MBA program, very shortly. Mm-hmm. We do not publish mean GRE scores. We actually just publish an average GMAT score. But usually for our programs, you can kind of give a ballpark of the GRE being probably in the 155 to 160 in each of the quantitative and verbal sections. Those are generally kind of a competitive GRE score. But I also want to remind candidates that the testing is just one component of the application. Mm-hmm. There is not a cutoff, there's not a minimum score, it is just one component. But it is also a changeable component of the application. So certainly if you're not satisfied with your score, consider taking the other standardized exam or potentially retesting for that exam.
It's also a great opportunity to reach out and have that conversation with your point of contact or recruiter here at Olin. If there's something you're concerned about with that score, maybe that's a good conversation to have with your recruiter.
Someone also asked a similar question that they have taken the IELTS exam. Do they also need to take the TOEFL? No, you do not. One or the other, yes. Exactly. Just like the GMAT or the GRE, you do not have to take both. Take your favorite.
No. Now, let's see. Academic record for international students. So we need to see all of your transcripts. So that might be in a different format. If it's not in English, we will need to see an English language translation that you will submit as part of your application. You do not need to submit an evaluation. So just an English language translation, there's no reason to submit a translation of that. If you've done study abroad in the United States and you did not earn transfer credits, it still is valuable to submit that transcript. I would say that any education that you have completed for credit, regardless of if it was accepted as transfer, you should submit. I think it does add to your application to submit that extra transcripts. However, if you did do courses that were done as transfer credit, if your home institution does not report those with credits and grades and course titles on your transcript, you will need to ask for the transcript from the institution where you completed those credits.
There's a question here about does a candidate with a 3-year degree, is that candidate eligible for a master's program? So for us, in order to be eligible for any of our graduate programs, you need to have the equivalent of a U.S. bachelor's degree. In our office, a 3-year degree, say from an Indian institution, is equivalent to a U.S. bachelor's degree, so that is a valid undergraduate experience to be eligible for our master's program. There's a couple of resume questions in here that I'll tackle. So, should education on the resume be included? Absolutely. Just like the example that I showed you, you should include the name of the institution, the degree that you received, the major that you had on your application, and including the dates in which you attended that institution. Certainly that is not technically professional experience, but it's when you were in school, and we want to know when your degree was. Thinking about any professional resume that you would submit, you would certainly include your education on that. So absolutely you need to include your degree on your resume. Also, for candidates that have less work experience, including things like internships is certainly important. So say you're still an undergraduate student, we would highly encourage you to put your summer internship experiences on your resume. Also, any sort of research jobs you may have had, things like that, certainly include those. There's also a question about any certifications that candidates might have, something like a CFA or a CPA. Absolutely, those should also be included on your resume. We know that those are a lot of work, and so we'd also want to see those on in the application. So a great way to do that is through the resume. You can say when that was conferred upon you. You're welcome to include that in your resume, absolutely. There's also a question about military service on a resume, absolutely. We consider military service definitely professional experience. So you can include the branch of service, the position that you were in, where you served, what you're responsible for. If you think about absolutely, especially if you were something like an officer in the military, you had the opportunity to likely be in a leadership role. So absolutely, those are very applicable skills. We very much value military service as professional experience. So absolutely include those on the resume. So there is a question about dual degree opportunities. We do offer a number of dual degree opportunities, something like maybe an MPA, an MBA, and an MPH. For information about the dual degrees, you can go onto our website and see all the possibilities, but what I will say generally is when you apply to our programs, you are applying for a specific entry date. So if you are applying for this coming year, we are expecting that you will start in the MBA program in fall of 2018, or you will start in our master's program in fall of 2018. So you need to be clear that when you're completing the application, that you're selecting the semester in which you want to start on the application form, and that is when you're telling us that you would like to start taking classes in the program. So if you're interested in a dual degree, it might mean that you are not able to apply to the MBA program yet, but you might have to wait until a later time, because once again, we're accepting applications for a specific semester with each application.
All right, a couple questions. Our customer analytics program, our analytics program is STEM designated, and we are looking for a high level, because of that STEM designation, that program and the quantitative level, we are looking for a strong quantitative background to be demonstrated in your application, including Calculus 1, Calculus 2, and statistics. Couple questions about transcripts and transfer credits. Again, if you've studied outside of the United States, you do not need to convert your grades to a US GPA. You will submit your transcript from your institution, and you do not need to submit an evaluation of those grades. Another question about transfer credits. If you did take transfer credits outside of your home institution and the credits are not reported on that transcript with grades and credit, you will need to ask that institution that you studied to provide that transcript. There was a question, let's see, we got to that one. Let's see, there's a question about your TOEFL or IELTS exam. It does need to be valid within that detail, or within that time frame, which was after August 1st of 2017 or 2016. If it's not valid, you may be applicable for a waiver, but to be waived, you have to have completed 3 years of education at an institution where the medium of instruction was English and received the degree from that institution. And again, that will need to be proved, whether it be with a letter from the institution or showing on the transcript that the medium of instruction was English.
So there are a couple questions on here about the differences between some of our programs, or more details about different aspects of our program. So this webinar, we are trying to cover the application process, which we know is very lengthy. I would encourage you, if you have specific questions, maybe about the difference between two of our programs, or you want to dive into qualifications of one of our programs, reach out to us. We're going to connect you to a recruiter and have a conversation about that, understand about your background. So certainly you are welcome to reach out with questions like that. Also, our webinar upcoming about the different graduate programs that we offer and talking about the portfolio within the Olin Business School will be very helpful. So I would certainly encourage you, because those could potentially be rather lengthy and personal, we absolutely encourage you to attend upcoming webinars and reach out to us. Our email is listed here. We're happy to have those conversations. There's a couple questions about what if you have a lot of experience? Should your resume be more than 1 page? I generally say, unless you have maybe 10 years or more of very detailed professional work experience, it still should fit on 1 page, because certainly also something that you did 10 years ago, you probably don't need 4 bullets about what you did 10 years ago. Your more recent experience generally is more relevant. So you should be spending more time on more recent work experience on your resume. Also, it's interesting when candidates sometimes have been in a job for a couple of years and they only have 1 or 2 bullets about that job. And then a job maybe they did 5 years ago, they have a bunch of bullets about that job. That's kind of interesting, because you would think what you're doing now is potentially more important and higher up in an organization. So also certainly focusing on the more relevant work experience on a resume is certainly important. Also, I'll mention that there's no right or wrong type of work experience. Earlier, we talked a little bit about military experience. It could be working for a nonprofit. It could certainly be working in business. It could also be working in the arts. You could have been self-employed. You could have been an entrepreneur. All of those things, anything that you've done kind of professionally is important. I'll also include that, yes, anything that you do outside of your day-to-day job, if it's above and beyond kind of just everyday activities, and this could be maybe you sit on the board of a nonprofit, or maybe you're very involved in a sports organization, or maybe you volunteer. Any of those things you certainly are welcome to include on your resume, but just keep in mind that space is very precious. So make sure you're including information that's really actually personal and relevant. I usually tell candidates certainly include extracurricular activities, but if your extracurricular activities at the bottom of your resume are running, travel, and food, those are very generic. They're wonderful. We all love them. I think that no one would argue with, well, maybe the running one.
I don't know.
But, you know, those are all pretty generic. If there's something beyond that that you did, absolutely. So I interviewed a candidate the other day that was running his 9th marathon. I was like, that is resume worthy. If you are, you know, if you traveled to 20 plus countries, that's resume worthy. Absolutely. We certainly love to hear what you're passionate about. But again, the space on a resume is very precious. So make sure that you're putting in relevant and very personalized information to that resume.
And going back, our essay is also a great place to get to know you. So if you have really great, you know, hobbies or something that you really want us to know about, that essay is a great chance. When we talk about wanting to know you and knowing your story, certainly if you're speaking, you know, thinking of a couple students we have right now that just started the program, a funkadelic rock guitarist, if that's, you know, part of your story, we want to hear it. So
yeah, world's best cheesecake. So.
Yeah, let us know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we certainly also want to mention once again that there are some upcoming webinars that might address some of the questions that have been posed here. Now, I wanted to mention that those are inclusive of diving deeper into our different graduate programs, and we also have an upcoming scholarship webinar. So any questions related to those, definitely hold on to those and attend our webinar next week. I also wanted to mention there's a question about letters of recommendation. For our programs right now, we do not require letters of recommendation. We did not forget to talk about it, we promise, but it's not a required aspect of the application. So make sure you know that we didn't forget it. Thank you. We did not. It is not a required part of the application. I'll also mention that certainly, you know, if you have questions about the application process, please reach out to us, because one of the aspects that we do here is candidates say, well, I heard from a current student or I heard from an alum about the application process and they said this, you know, is that true? I usually recommend that you talk to us about any application questions that you have, because the application does change year to year. So each year we tweak our essay prompt, we tweak how we do interviews, and we're constantly improving the application experience. So certainly if you have any questions, please reach out to us, because what the application looked like last year or what it looked like 5 years ago might be very different. So certainly reach out to us. And if you have any questions about, you know, is your experience relevant? Are you a fit for the MBA program? What master's program is the best fit for you? Please reach out to us. Again, that general inbox that we're sending you is manned by our recruiters. So we are going to get those questions answered, and we aim to get back to you within 48 hours. So please send us emails, as long as it's not the weekend, because we do like to go home over the weekends. But send us an email. We're happy to answer any of those questions.
I agree.
Jessica and I, not just Jessica and I really enjoyed our time with you today. We want to wrap it up in just about 9:45 here, because we know some of you might be staying awake late or getting up early.
Or getting up very early.
Please reach out to us. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have. We hope this has been informative. We certainly wish you the best of luck in the rest of this process, and absolutely cannot wait to see your applications in the near future.
I agree and second all of that. Also, we have recorded this and we will share it with you with a YouTube link. So if there's anything you want to go back to as you're preparing your application, you certainly can. And we look forward to receiving your applications.